from Relay FM. This is Connected, episode 334. Today's show is brought to you by Pingdom, Bombus, and Baronfig. My name is Myke Hurley, and I'm joined by Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello. Hi.
You jumped the gun there.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you today.
It's just me and you today.
That's the reason.
Babe is he's in the city today.
Yeah, he's cheating on us. I know he's cheating on me. I know he is.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just me and you today. We have a bunch of fun topics, the kind of stuff that Steven wouldn't let us talk about.
Yeah, I believe my message to you was let's make it weird.
Yes, as always.
So we're gonna be a little bit weird today. We should start with follow-up though.
Okay.
I guess. I do actually have follow-up this time. Usually I like to eschew follow-up when Steven's not here, but there are some things that I legitimately want to talk about, and I guess they could technically be classed as follow-up, or we could give this whole segment a new name for today.
What if it wasn't called follow-up?
Okay.
How would you call it? Like in 2021, if you were to describe this kind of section for a podcast.
I don't have a good name.
The warm-up?
Warm-up. Reflections.
Reflections.
Boomerang, TJ suggested in the chat room, which I guess is interesting because we're kind of reflecting on he's coming back from last time. Anywho, Mark Gurman reports that Apple are working on a MagSafe battery pack. So on last week's episode, we were talking about a Mac Rumors article where I think it was Stephen Moser at Mac Rumors was digging through some of the code to find reference to what seemed to be a battery pack. And Mark Gurman has reported that Apple are in fact working on one. But whether we'll see it or not, who knows? I assume that they're probably being careful. They don't want to get themselves into an AirPower-like situation, but it doesn't matter anyway because Anker Gondon did it, and they've released one already. So Anker have a new product. What is it called? The Anker Power Core Magnetic 5K Wireless Power Bank, which just rolls right off the tongue as a name.
Yeah, Anker and Sony, they should really get together and collaborate on product names because
then it would be called like the Anker Power Core 566609.
No, the WF Power Core Magnetic 1000XM5.
At least for both of them, it might be an upgrade in their naming, right? Because at least it would give Sony naming at least some kind of description.
With English words, yes.
So this is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which will take the Pro Max from 0 to 75% in charge. All of the other phones that will have smaller batteries, it will basically take them to full, if not full charge. It is MagSafe compatible, like all of Anker's other products in this
but it's
genre.
not MagSafe. It's MagSafe compatible.
Meaning it has magnets in it and it Qi charges, but it's not official. So I've seen different websites reporting different figures, but it will charge somewhere between 5 to 7.5 watts. So you're going to get regular Qi charging speeds, not the faster MagSafe speed. The Amazon page for this that I was looking at, which is linked to from the 9 to 5 Mac article, had an illustration or like an image on it, which seemed to suggest to me that you could put the battery pack on a Qi charger and then your phone on top of that, so you could charge them both at the same time.
Okay.
I love my family enough to not do that. Because I am convinced that would set my house on fire.
That is literally the stack of battery pancakes that we mentioned last week.
It is exactly
doing that.
That is exactly it. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't know, man. I don't know. None of this makes me feel comfortable. I don't like the thought of this product. I don't know. It's not for me.
The fact that Anker is not doing official MagSafe accessories, in this case, it's a pretty big deal because they are effectively limited to charging to half or maybe even lower than half of the officially supported charging rate for MagSafe. Official MagSafe accessories, they can deliver up to 15 watts of charging. I believe the MagSafe Duo charger that Apple makes peaks at about 14 watts.
But that could be because it's splitting the power out to two different things, though, right?
Exactly. But I believe that officially MagSafe can deliver up to 15 watts of charging. So if Apple does this, I assume they will release a MagSafe battery pack that snaps to the back of the phone and delivers 15 watts of fast charging to your device. It's a pretty big difference compared to 5 or 7.5 watts. It's like going to the first generation Qi charging for the iPhone, whatever, the iPhone 10, 11?
Yeah.
I don't remember. And it used to be very slow. And then Apple, the following year, maybe 2 years later, they supported the faster 15 watt charging for Qi. So the moment I saw that Anker had one of these devices, I almost wanted to get one. And then I remembered that they're not doing official MagSafe, but MagSafe compatible. And I think I'm just going to wait for Apple to release their one, which obviously it's going to be super expensive and it's going to be thicker, I think. But I still want to get the faster charging. I'm really intrigued by the idea of, and I want to see how it works in practice, but the idea of me going out with an iPhone and a bunch of different things that I can sort of attach to the back of my phone, depending on the situation. I guess, it would be nice to have an iPhone, and then when you need it, you put on the wallet. When you don't need the wallet, you put on the battery pack. It's almost, constantly exchanging things to attach to the back of your iPhone.
It's like modular, which is
cool. Yeah. And you're keeping like each of these things in a different pocket.
You just get like a utility vest, or like a fishing vest, and and basically you just put all of these things facing out, and you just stick the iPhone onto the vest magnetically wherever you need it. So you put it like on your right breast pocket when you want it charged. If you need your wallet, you just like clip it to the pocket and slide it out, and the wallet will come out with it.
Man, somebody should make that product.
They definitely will now. This is like some like conference in the future. Federico's walking around with his like MagSafe vest.
MagSafe vest. We have a talent for willing jokes into existence. So I'm sure that somebody will think of this.
It's a great idea. That's why.
Sure, you can. I'm sure you will not look ridiculous going out and about wearing that MagSafe vest. But yeah, I'm going to get the Apple one regardless. Because I always, it's like my tradition. I always get the Apple battery cases or packs when they release them annually. So moving on in follow-up, last week we talked, and to an extent we criticized the latest Craft update. Craft, it's the note-taking app that we're both using. I believe, Myke, in your collection of note-taking apps, Craft has a place.
It is one of the 3 or 4 apps that I'm currently using, yes.
Perfect. The thing we criticized was the new feature called Toggle List, which is sort of like a mini outliner built into Craft that allows you to create lists that you can expand and collapse. So you can, there's a little toggle icon that you can click to reveal children nodes, I guess, and you can expand and collapse the list as you go. It wasn't really intuitive to use in its first release. Thankfully, it appears that a bunch of people complained, and the team at Craft that listened. And in the update released over the weekend, it is now much easier to operate. So there's a couple of differences that I want to point out from the original version. You can now see these vertical lines connecting all the different toggles. So it's easier to see the structure and the indentation of the nodes and the indented items within them. It's much easier to follow the structure of a toggle list. And also there's a new keyboard shortcut to expand all nested nodes. You can option click and you will basically expand all of the children nodes within a list, which is really nice. So it's easier to use. I still wish that it was, I believe you mentioned this, Myke, that when you're using the iPhone app, dealing with indentation, it's not great. Obviously, it's better on iPad because you have a physical keyboard attached. But sometimes I really wish that the iPhone software keyboard had a tab button.
Yeah, well, I mean, like lots of applications manage indent
With
left and
gestures.
indent right quite nicely.
Yeah.
With using tapping the enter key twice, that kind of stuff. A lot of apps manage it. And at this point, with some of them, say like even Google Docs and Apple Notes, they do a really good job. And like sometimes use swipe gestures or something. And I think Craft can still have something, a ways to go there, because now they have two outlining modes. You can use bulleted lists or you can use their toggling lists.
Yeah.
And I think it would now be cool if they spent a bit of time observing how other apps manage outlining features, especially on the iPhone, and what you can and can't do with the keyboard, and kind of integrate some of those gestures and shortcuts effectively into the app. Because if they did that, I mean, I'm not putting them in like some kind of hostage situation here, but like if they did do that, I would find it way easier to move some of my other stuff to Craft, because I tend to write in an outline format.
Two other things I want to mention in this Craft update.
Yep.
Document preview when searching. This is super cool. So both on the Mac and on iPad, when you open the search UI, it's like Spotlight. So there's the list of search results on the left side of the search window, but on the right you will see a preview, like a thumbnail preview of the selected document. So it's a very nice touch, because you can, in addition to the title, you can visually preview the document you're about to open from search.
That's nice.
I wish it was available on iPhone too. And also, you can now create spaces. This is part of the one of the initiatives of the Craft team of putting you in control of your data. And one of the things they're doing, in addition to exporting and sharing data from Craft to other applications, now you can create a space in an external location on your device. So this means you can, instead of using the Craft servers, you can create a space in iCloud Drive or Working Copy, any other compatible location on your device. So that's cool. If you don't want to use the online Craft sync, you can create a space that is entirely offline, or you can use iCloud Drive, or you can use any other storage location provider on your device. So that's pretty nice. I'm not going to do this, but that's cool.
That surprised me, honestly.
Yeah.
It seems like something that they don't have to do. I thought it was cool.
Well, I think a lot of people are, they prioritize the idea of data ownership these days, which I totally understand. So it's
right.
Cool. It's your right. So I think it's cool that they are adjusting this within a few months of their first release, really. Instead of saying, yeah, this is one of the things that we're going to do down the road, as a lot of companies promise and few of them actually deliver upon. And this is also taking advantage of a built-in iOS and iPadOS API. So it's very cool to see that it's both the message and the implementation of it that I appreciate.
But I get it, and they make it clear if you use that, you lose some features. So like
obviously,
their collaboration tools, which is powered by their engine, well, you're not going to get that. But I think that's perfectly fine. Like, this is what you're trading off against. I saw a friend of the show _ David Smith posted a tweet showing the usage, or the kind of the Apple Watches that he can see in use in WatchSmith. And I wanted to bring this up to touch on what we were talking about in regards to if the Apple Watch SE is successful or not. Because I figured that whilst David's data is obviously going to be skewed to WatchSmith users, that probably also skews it, I think, maybe to early adopters. I'm not sure. But basically, the conclusion that David was drawing from his data is that Series 3 watches are still very much in use. So 26% of WatchSmith users have a Series 3 watch, which is quite high. It's actually the highest of any watch, any watch at all that uses WatchSmith. So Series 3 is stuck around for a long time. Now, I wanted to say that, like, there's a couple of things that are interesting here. The other is the SE is 6%, which is really small. So the Series 4 is 20%, Series 5 is 23%, Series 6 is 18%, and the SE watch is 6%. So kind of indicating that, there aren't a lot of WatchSmith users with an SE. And I just thought that was interesting. I think what I'm looking at here is, I think people would look at the SE and say, oh, that there's like a cost thing there. But I think what's happening, and like the reason we're seeing so many Series 3 watches it's still in use, is the Apple Watch probably is not a year-over-year purchase for most people. And I wouldn't assume that those Series 3 users are going to migrate to the SE because of price. They'll probably migrate to the Series 7 or Series 8 because it will be multiple years between purchase.
Well, I was not expecting this kind of slow upgrade cycle, though, for an Apple Watch. Because the Series 3 came out 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Almost 4?
Mm-hmm. But all right, the main thing that you don't get is the always-on display, right? But outside of that,
and
you
the
don't
ECG.
really... Yeah, but I think whilst that is a cool feature, right? I don't know if people are clamoring for it, right? Got to get my ECG. Like, it's a great feature if you have it, but like, I don't, clearly it's not enough of a driver because there's a lot of people still using Series 3 watches. I just think it's one of those things where, like, most technology products, people do not buy one every year. Phones, people do because they're so important. But everything else, by and large, like, why would you get a new one every year? Especially if you have to buy a new phone, right? Or you want to buy a new phone.
At that point, how are you using the Apple Watch? If like, what does the casual Apple Watch user that upgrades every 3 to 4 years use the Apple Watch for? As a watch?
Well, notifications, watch, and fitness. Series 3 does all that.
But I guess you're not really that into fitness. Because if you are, you would get a new one with a better sensors and the ECG and the blood oxygen rate.
That's if you're thinking of health and not fitness. Because like fitness is fitness tracking, which it does, right? The things that you're mentioning, they are mostly towards the like health end, right? Of like, I want the Apple Watch to make sure I'm alive. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like, I think for most people, those features tend to be nice, but not necessary. Where a lot of the sensors are maybe more necessary. Like, I want something to track my steps, or I want something to track just my general health and fitness. But I would expect most users that are on a Series 3 watch are probably using it for the connected stuff, like the text messages and notifications.
I think you're right. I think
it's perfectly fine for that.
They are exactly like my mom, who uses a Series 3 Apple Watch, and she uses it because she thinks it's cool that she's got the Mickey Mouse watch face, and she can look at the time, and she can read iMessage and WhatsApp notifications. That is literally all she does with an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
So I actually think that there's a lot of people like that. I thought it was just my mom. Clearly not.
No, and also I could imagine it's a lot of people that they have it and they like it.
Yeah.
They don't love it. So they're not in a rush to get the best thing.
Maybe some days they forget to put it on, and it's fine. They're different from us. Well, from me.
Well, from you. But I just think like some of the fitness stuff, right, is if you're not necessarily a fitness person, but you like the fact that your watch does the tracking for you, it's like nice and easy, right? It's like, oh, good, all my steps have been counted. It's reminding me to stand up every hour. It's like super basic stuff that people are happy with, but they're not necessarily clamoring for what is my heart rhythm, what is my blood oxygen level, as things that,
am I dying, which is, obviously.
Well, I mean, we lived before Apple Watches,
Right.
I know that isn't necessarily the case for everyone. There's lots of really great stories, but I don't know if it is a driver for enough people. I think clearly it's not a driver for enough people. A lot of people, but not everyone to upgrade all the time.
All right.
I think you can maybe every few years, like people might want to get it for like the 3 or 4 sensors that they're missing. And
maybe because the battery lasts longer.
Yep.
maybe.
And the always on display. See, the always on display, I think a lot of people don't realize how good it is until they've used it, right? Like you
True.
don't, unless it's something that you're particularly after, maybe you don't notice it. I don't know. But I just thought that these statistics were interesting, especially because I would have assumed underscores app users would skew more towards I upgrade my watch more frequently.
Well, he's a global developer now.
Yeah, but WatchSmith is surely much more niche still, you know?
Well, sure, but also I think, I don't know. It's I was not expecting this, so this was fascinating for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a very good point. Like, what kinds of people are using WatchSmith? Man, look at that series.
This is the SE numbers was still just very interesting to me.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. I really don't think it has a huge. What they'll probably do is I wouldn't be surprised if like whatever is the Series 3 goes away, and the SE is just then the base cheap model going forward. But we'll see. Today's episode is brought to you by Pingdom. Do you have a website? Does your website have shopping cart or registration form? Maybe a contact us page? This is all stuff that you want available for people coming to your website. If you answered yes, I do have one of these pages on my site, you need Pingdom because nobody wants their critical website transactions to fail. This could mean a bad experience for your users. It could also mean lost business for you. The good news is you can set up transaction monitoring with Pingdom, and they will alert you when cart checkout forms or login pages fail before they affect your customers and your business. Pingdom will let you know the moment that anything goes wrong in whatever way is best for you. You can customize how you're alerted and who is alerted depending on the outage severity to make sure the person who can fix it is told first. Pingdom cares about your users having the very best site experience possible. So if disaster strikes, you're going to be the first to know. It's so easy to get started. Just go to pingdom.com/relayfm and you can sign up for a 30-day free trial with no credit card required. Then when you do sign up, use the code CONNECTED at checkout and you will get a huge 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for their support of this show and Relay FM. It happened. Spotify Hi-Fi for Fi. I don't like the name, though. I've said it out loud. Spotify Hi-Fi.
Spot Hi-Fi.
Spot Hi-Fi. That's yes. They should have done that. Spot Hi-Fi. It doesn't. The name out loud doesn't work for me, but written down is perfectly fine. This is what is it? High quality? Is that what they're calling it?
CD quality, as they call it.
Okay.
CD quality lossless streaming. Coming later this year at some point in selected markets, as they always say.
Do you have an American account?
I do.
Okay,
so at the very least, I think I will be able to upgrade to that. This is in reference to the lyrics feature, which is also coming at some point later this year in selected markets. But yes, they announced this with Billie Eilish, of all artists, by the
Apple's
way, in a
favorite?
video. Yeah, which is John mentioned this in the linked post on Mac. So it's quite a nice coincidence that they used Billie Eilish to announce this feature. It's coming in a few months, and there are basically no details, no technical details at the moment about Spotify Hi-Fi. They mentioned CD quality. I assume this is gonna be so. I'm basing all of this on personal speculation at this point. I assume that this is going to be different from things like Tidal Masters, for example. It's going to be more similar to what Amazon is doing with Amazon Music HD. So we can expect, I would say, by mentioning CD quality, I guess Spotify is going to do 16-bit, pretty standard 44.1 kilohertz kind of encoding instead of what they're doing now, which is MP3 320 kilobits per second streaming. Literally, they're just gonna do CD quality. I don't even think they're gonna do 24-bit high resolution audio, which Amazon Music HD does for some recordings. I think they're gonna stick to CD quality based on what they're saying, and it's gonna be different from Tidal Masters. It's gonna be different from what Tidal is doing with MQA, which is another encoding technique. And obviously, I want to see what they're going to do in terms of pricing, because as we talked a few weeks ago, Amazon entered the space of high lossless music streaming a few months ago, and they undercut the competition on all fronts, basically. And they are very competitive. And the Amazon Music HD app, it's pretty terrible on desktop. It's okay on mobile,
Okay.
I think. What's interesting here, besides the sort of going against Amazon and what they're going to do for pricing, I think it's the implication behind Spotify getting into the lossless music streaming space, and what it means for the ecosystem of Spotify Connect enabled speakers made by third-party manufacturers. So Spotify Connect is this technology that allows you to instantly connect your Spotify account to any device that wants to support Spotify. Spotify Connect works on the Amazon Echo. It works on PlayStation, on Xbox, and it works on a collection of speakers made by all kinds of companies. And it's different from AirPlay because it talks directly to your Spotify account, which means you can control those speakers from an iPhone, from an iPad, from your Mac. It's not like device to speaker sort of streaming like AirPlay does. It works over the internet.
It's kind of more like Chromecast or something.
It's kind of like
right?
that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So I think it will be interesting to see, because there's so many companies making high-end gear, high-end speakers with Spotify Connect integration, and I think having a hi-fi tier is going to be a pretty compelling offer. If you're that kind of user, and if you have those kinds of speakers, you're probably going to want to upgrade your Spotify account to the hi-fi tier. What's also interesting here is the fact that at this point, everybody has or will soon have some kind of hi-fi tier for their music streaming service, except the very company making high-end prosumer products, which is Apple. And I think it's very fascinating that Apple, the company that makes the HomePod and AirPods Max and has Apple Music and has a pretty perfect use case for a bundle of this kind of more expensive tier, they're not doing it.
But like, whether it was in their plans or not, now that Spotify's done this, they kind of have to now, right?
Well, I think so. Like, we were having this conversation months ago, and we were already saying they have to. Like, why are you not doing this? You have Apple One, you have Apple One Premier, which is the more expensive one, and you have a HomePod and these really expensive and really good sounding headphones. Why are you not taking advantage of this? But at this point, when Spotify does it, I think it lights a fire under Apple. And I think they're going to do it at this point.
Well, because Apple do have to, I believe, they do have to match Spotify feature for feature if they want to remain competitive against them. And you may say, this isn't important to me, and that's fine, but you just don't want to look like you're falling behind.
Right. And it's very surprising to me, the idea that Apple would leave that money on the table, even if it's a niche kind of offering, even if, and look, every time we talked about this stuff, we always get the tweets from people saying, this is all snake oil, you cannot hear high resolution audio, you cannot hear the difference. Okay, that's your opinion. We're talking about like in the broader context of companies.
There is a difference between like MP3 to CD though. Like that is, you can argue maybe past there, like some people wouldn't hear it, and it gets to a certain point and there is smaller.
I think you can tell, like if you care about music and you have good equipment, you can tell the difference between an MP3 and a CD. Some people will even argue against that, but that's beyond the scope of this argument. Here we're just discussing the fact that multiple companies have at this point different tiers of their music streaming services, and Apple, which you would typically associate with the idea of having premium services and making premium hardware, for arguably their most important service, they do not. And I think it's very surprising at this point.
It's like if the Apple TV wasn't 4K.
Right. Well, yes. That is a very good analogy. Yes.
Or
Imagine that.
Oh, well, actually, maybe a better analogy is the Apple TV box is 4K, but Apple TV's content is 1080p. Right? So, like, For All Mankind is a 1080p show that you can watch. You can't get it higher quality than that.
Yeah. So I think it would make sense to offer this in Apple One Premiere, the more expensive bundle that they have. And I would imagine like that would fit in nicely with that kind of more expensive bundle. It would be nice because you will be able to have lossless streaming shared with the family. It would work really well with the HomePod, with AirPods Max. I could imagine, I can imagine this tier existing. But then again, why haven't they done it before? And will they do it now just because Spotify has it? I think they have to, but we were wrong before on this.
Yeah, but I could imagine them thinking that maybe the consumer appetite wasn't there, or at least like maybe they've been working on it, but it's not been high priority for that reason. But now their main competitor has done it. I wouldn't be surprised if it lit a fire under them. And the idea of making it, I think, actually exclusive to Apple One Premiere is interesting as an idea. I think there is something to be said for adding features like that to the Apple One bundles as a way to encourage the bundles, like sweeten the bundles a little bit more. Like you get some extra stuff rather than it just being like you get all of the things for slightly cheaper. Actually being like, oh, and you also get access to these additional things. I think that would be a good idea too.
Yeah.
But at this point, it aligns with every incentive Apple has as a company to do this, because you could charge more money, which is services, and you care about that. It aligns with your high-end audio equipment, and you now need to do it to remain competitive with your number one competitor, who are unusually for Apple, at least modern day, something that Apple cares about a lot, and they have a smaller market in, right? Which is Spotify. Spotify is much, much larger than Apple Music worldwide, at least. So yeah, it's intriguing. I think that they should do it. I don't know when, but I would be surprised if we went out this whole year without them doing it. Did you make it an annual pick? I don't remember. Did I?
Let's look at the bottom of our document.
I'm taking a look here now. It's not in your actual picks. No, you didn't. You didn't make it a pick.
See, this is what happens when I don't trust my instincts.
Passion. Where's the passion?
Where's the passion? I don't know. I let myself down here. Wow.
Last night you tweeted an app idea that I want to read. I just thought it was intriguing. Here's a free, sustainable, I have no clue, idea for an app I find myself increasingly wish existed. Choose friends from Twitter whose taste you trust. Only show me the tweets that they loved, which I assume you mean like, right? Like that, what we say, like, it's like the
little
heart
icon, yeah.
Give me filters for articles, photos, and videos that they like, literally nothing else. For context, over time, I've noticed I have a regular group of 10 to 15 people that I follow on Twitter who always like interesting articles, videos, threads, or photos. And instead of opening each profile manually, I just want to see a unified timeline for those liked tweets.
Yes. Okay. So the subsequent tweet explains exactly what I do. I'm trying to spend less time just scrolling my Twitter timeline during the day. And what I've noticed about myself doing lately, two things. One, I use the algorithmic timeline at the end of the day, like in the evening, if I want to spend like 15 minutes to see what I missed, I switch to that timeline and I get the highlight from the day. The second thing I do is I have this group of like close friends, and this is different from a list. Pay attention. I don't want to see their timelines. I just want to see the tweets they liked.
You don't want to see what they have to say. You want to see what they enjoyed.
I just want to see the things they liked.
Yeah.
Because usually I always find a lot of good stuff in there that they don't necessarily reshare, but they hit the like button on,
Mm.
right?
See, I would like to, don't answer yet. I would like to believe that I'm on this list because you like my tastes. However,
It's you, Steve
okay.
Troughton Smith, Jason, our friend Mohammed Taher, bunch of writers from Polygon, for example. Like it's that group of people that I know they are very active on Twitter and they always say interesting stuff.
Because I was going to say, I consider myself a serial liker. I like
I know
way too much stuff. I don't know if that means that I'm good or bad for this list. I would assume that meant I'm bad. So I appreciate that you at least say that I'm on it.
Yeah.
In your mind.
And the thing is, this is different from, because obviously when you tweet something that I've noticed lately, I guess lately means the last 10, no, maybe not 10, the last 2 years. Whenever you tweet something, even the thing that you think, well, I cannot be possibly criticized for this tweet. There's literally nothing you can point and criticize. But no,
if that's what you think, Federico, you are not trying hard enough.
even for the safest politically correct tweet, there's still gonna be something that people criticize you for. And in this case, a bunch of people told me, "Oh, so you want to have a bubble for your bubble?" Okay, sure. Whatever. Just say, I just want to see what my friend liked. But no, that's not okay.
How dare you?
How dare you
Get out
want to
of
see
your
what your
echo
friends
chamber,
like?
Federico.
Yes,
Jeez.
that was also something that was
yeah, of course,
said. What's funny about this is that a few years ago, Jason Kotke launched exactly this service that I forgot about. It was called Stellar.io, and it was a web service that aggregated likes from a bunch of different social networks, including Twitter and Flickr, which obviously, used to be a thing. I have a vague memory of Stellar. I know that a lot of people were really into it, and obviously it was shut down a few years ago. I
sold
believe,
the name, because it's now the 5-star influencer marketing platform.
Yes, now it's the domain. I hope that Jason sold it for a really nice amount of money to those people. But yeah, I believe it was shut down because of obviously the Twitter API. And the thing is, yes, I just want to have a system to an app, whatever, a place where I can go in and there is a timeline. However, the timeline is not the tweets or the retweets, but just the things they liked. It seems obviously I got a bunch of really interesting replies to this. Obviously, once again, the problem is the Twitter API. It appears that, and I included the response by Nathan Lawrence, I believe. Yes, they're one of the developers of Nighthawk, which is a very unique Twitter client. And according to the API information that Nathan shared, you can only get the 20 most recent tweets. But they seem to be limited to, there seems to be like whether you're the type of developer that you are for the Twitter platform, you can get either 20 or 75, but you're still limited to throttle that request every 15 minutes. So there's obviously limitations in the Twitter API. You cannot get, say, hundreds of likes every 2 minutes. I don't think that would be strictly necessary for the kind of application that I would like to use.
Yeah.
But still, that's worth keeping in mind. So I started to look around. Ideally, somebody will take this free idea and do something with it. And I will give you my money if you do so. Because it's literally the app that I want to use at the end of the day, every day. But I've been looking at potential alternatives right now. So a bunch of things were recommended to me. One of them is called OneFeed, which is this web app to sort of create a very lightweight RSS client. However, what sets it apart is that you can paste in like links to YouTube channels, to blogs, obviously, but also to Twitter profiles. And it gives you the latest updates from those places, but it doesn't support Twitter likes. So it's different from that. Right now, I'm hoping that the developers who are, by the way, Italian, so that makes me always happy, of this service called Mailbrew will be able to do what I asked. So Mailbrew is a really fascinating web service that I should have tried years ago, and I always forgot. And now I did try it, and I think I really like it. The idea is that it's an aggregator for newsletters and social updates and RSS feeds. And at the end of the day, you get a single newsletter containing links to all of that stuff. It's like a daily digest, basically. So you create an account and you say, hey, I want to subscribe to these newsletters and I want to get updates from these YouTube channels and these Twitter profiles. Send me a single thing at the end of the day. And you can specify the time. It's very nice. The UI is really well done. And I'll tell you, Myke, the thing I think you're going to appreciate, it's a very good PWA on iOS.
I love a good... What is it? I can always forget. It's like programs with attitude. That's it. It's good. Program with attitude.
I know you love it.
Why don't they make an app?
But it's really well done.
This feels like an app.
I hope that they make it a native thing. So today they launched top links from Twitter, which is basically what Nuzzle. Remember Nuzzle?
Yeah, I remember Nuzzle.
Used to do. So in your daily digest, it gives you your most shared links from your Twitter timeline. Mm-hmm. And they told me they're going to look into likes, Twitter likes. Mm-hmm. So maybe this could be a solution. Like at the end of the day, I get a digest and it contains likes from my from select accounts that I follow on Twitter. However, a few minutes ago, as we were preparing for the show, listener and reader Ben told me that this is possible in Fitbin. It appears that you can subscribe to anyone's likes via Twitter on Fitbin. So I was not aware of this. This is now really fascinating to me because I am a Fitbin user. I am a Fitbin subscriber. And Ben shared a screenshot. Let me see if I can paste this link in the Discord. It appears that there's an actual setting that allows you to do this. And you can subscribe to anyone's like just by appending /likes to their Twitter profile URL. So I'm going to consider this. However, at the same time, Mailbrew is also like as a concept, very fascinating to me. I am now trying it for, I believe the first couple newsletters that you get are free. And what I did is I took all the newsletters that I'm subscribed to, like the Pitchfork one, the one from The Verge. I put them into the Mailbrew account, added a bunch of Twitter accounts, a couple of RSS feeds, and I received my digest at 7 p.m. just before doing the show, and it's very nice. So I don't know. Maybe I will be able to do this with Fitbin. Maybe I will be able to do this via Mailbrew if the developers add support for Twitter likes. Maybe somebody will make a native application for this. But I was not, as always, I was literally in my pajamas in bed, and I thought, hey, this is a fun idea for a tweet. And and I was not expecting that kind of response.
Story of your life there.
Yes. Sometimes the best tweets are always issued in those conditions. Yes.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. They've rethought every single detail of the socks that we wear to make them more comfortable. These socks do more than keep you cozy. They help give back to vulnerable members of communities. Because for every pair of socks that you purchase, Bombas donates a pair to someone in need. Thanks to the generosity of Bombas customers, they have donated over 40 million pairs of socks and counting through their nationwide network of more than 3,000 giving partners. This is an impact that is more powerful than ever, because to those experiencing homelessness, it can represent the dignity of putting on some clean clothes, which is a small comfort that is important. I love my Bombas socks. I'm a big fan. I love their ankle socks. I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. The most comfortable ankle socks that I've ever worn. They stay up. They've got padding in just all the right places. I've in the past had always needed to wear multiple pairs of ankle socks when I was like wearing shorts or whatever. But with the Bomber socks, just one pair, super fantastic. I love them. But also their regular socks are all really comfortable too, and they have lots of really wonderful patterns and styles. They do limited edition ones too, which I really like. It's super great. You should go and check it out. Keep your eye on it. It's fantastic. And you can give a pair when you buy a pair and get 20% off your first purchase at bombas.com/connected. That's bombas.com/connected for 20% off your first purchase. One last time, bombas.com/connected. Our thanks to Bombas for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. So, hey, we're going to talk about hey.
Hey.
Steven's not here. Let's talk about email. There's two things I wanted to talk about with hey today. And the first one is kind of not really about email at all. So Jason Fried, one of the co-founders, posted on Twitter like a link to an article called Hey World. And it is a blog post that was created by Hey, by emailing something, right? So he, within the Hey app, sent an email to an email address, which then took the text and created a blog post out of it. Publishing
a blog over email using the text editor built into the Hey app. Including formatting and media attachments, because there's also an image in this blog post, and it was sent to a specific email address. The subject becomes the title of the blog post, and the blog post lives at a world.hey.com webpage that includes support for subscribing via RSS, or obviously via email as a newsletter. And obviously, and Jason, and Jason said, we don't know what we're gonna do with this right now. It's just an experiment that we're testing. Jason is doing it. What's the name of the other Hey co-founder?
David Hannemeyer.
David. Yes, they each have their own Hey World pages. And I just think this is very. There's a bunch of posts in here on the homepage. I just thought it was a single blog post. Jason published more stuff after that. Cool. So this instantly reminded me of a service that used to exist years ago called Posterous. Remember Posterous?
When
Myke?
I saw this in the show notes, I felt like a wave of nostalgia hit me in the face. Yeah, I remember Posterous.
Yes. So this was a service that existed in 2010, 2011. It was later, obviously, as many, many good things that we used to use back in the day. It was acquired and then shut down by, guess what? Twitter, that obviously did nothing with it.
Oh my God.
Nothing.
Really?
Yes.
Why did they do that?
Twitter, years ago, in 2013, acquired a service that potentially could have solved the problems of tweet storms, for example, that potentially could have solved or could have been like the original version of things like Substack, which is now so popular as a newsletter platform. Mm-hmm. It could have been all of that, and nothing ever came of it.
It was supposed to us was kind of like Tumblr, right?
Right.
Am I remembering that right?
Right. Well, you could email a blog post into your Posterous account, and it would be published on this very lightweight, very simple, kind of like a Tumblr blog, webpage. And you could send, like from mobile devices, you could send obviously an email, but also the email could include attachments, so photos, MP3s, video. And it was a very simple, sort of a frictionless way to have a blog without having to publish via like a text editor, via an API. Just you could email your thoughts, and it was a very simple way to publish something on the web, including attachments, without the complication typically involved with a blogging, with the CMS, really. And it was like a lot of people were really into Posterous back then. You remember those were the days of South by Southwest, when it was a big deal, sort of being the hot new startup in that space. And then, yeah, Twitter acquired Posterous, and they did nothing with it. Yeah, there was an iPhone app to email photos into your Posterous page.
Yep, Pick Posterous.
Pick Posterous, yes. Yeah. And I think it's, as you know, a few minutes ago we mentioned, this is literally how history works. It always repeats itself with familiar patterns presented in new ways. And in a way, this is what the folks at Hey are testing now.
Right, if history truly repeats itself, Twitter's going to buy Hey.
Well, let's hope that this is only true to an extent. But I think it's fascinating that we're now circling back to that idea. Having a blog is still too difficult, which I will not argue with that, because I think there's some truth to that. I think there's the barrier to having your own domain and your own space, and, you know, CMSs are still too difficult to explain. And yes, so I don't fully disagree with that. But what if it could be easier? And what if you could just send an email, which is something that basically everybody can relate to? What if it was as simple as that? You write the email as if it was a blog post, and you can include attachments, you can include photos, and you put in a little subject field, and then it becomes a blog post, and you have a link that you can share with your friends, you can share on social media. I think it's a beautiful idea, and I really hope that it becomes part of the personal Hey subscription plan. I would love to have this kind of feature as a just even as a simple way to publish something that doesn't fit in a tweet, but is obviously not a post for Mac stories in my case.
Some personal news.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Or like some personal news. I have now quit my job, and I'm now a professional.
News. I forgot how to use email.
Blogger. Yes,
I do see stuff like this. I will be honest, my initial thought is, hey, focus, right? Like, I see something like that, and it's kind of like, okay, new email service, you've probably got a bit of work to do. Why don't we focus on the email service and not the blogging platform that you now want to build? Because
it's the Evernote syndrome.
You can't just do this. You're going to have to give people tools to go in and edit it in case there's spelling errors, right? Like, gotta, keep the focus. Come on, you can do it. I don't know, man. Fun, yes, definitely fun little feature. I'm sure people would love it, but I do kind of that's my initial feeling when I saw it. To be honest, it was kind of like, okay, make your email app, please.
I also don't disagree with that,
but maybe I'm cynical.
Well, it helps to be cynical these days. So I think it's cool. I also don't disagree with you, especially because Hey is such a young service with a long way to go in terms of addressing, as we're going to talk about shortly, features that competing email services, especially for professional users, they already offer. So I think it's cool. I also think you have a point. So I'm not really siding with anybody, but I just think as an idea, in isolation, the idea is the right one. Because lowering the barrier to entry for publishing thoughts online, I welcome all solutions when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But then, strictly speaking about Hey, yes, maybe they should focus more on the... But they did say this is like a thing that we built and we're not sure if we're going to do anything here.
But don't tell anyone. Why you don't have to tell anyone, right? It's just your little fun thing that you've got. It's just for you. But it's kind of like, this isn't your problem to solve. Email service. Like the idea of making it more simple to post online. Like, this isn't, you don't have to solve this problem. And you do open, every time you do something like this as a paid service, especially a new one, you open yourself up to people being more frustrated at you, because if there are things that you're still working on that your paying customers want you to do for the service that you're paying them for, and then you're like, LOL, but we just made a blogging platform. It's like, okay, can you get around to this feature that I need, please? I'm not saying not to do it, but I'm just, I don't know how I feel about it. It just seems a little peculiar to me.
Yeah.
So what are these features that you as a Hey user are frustrated about?
Well, over the past few months, it came a time when we had to convince Sylvia that she also needed to use, because of the things she does in Mac stories, that she also needed to use Hey.
Right.
And she tends to be, rightfully so, very picky with the services and the apps that she has to use for work.
Well, because as well, she doesn't have, I assume, the natural curiosity about new apps and services that you do. So she gets none of that benefit out of it and can only gets the downsides.
She hates, and hate doesn't quite describe it. She actually deeply despises the idea of trying new stuff. She just wants to use one app and stick with it effectively forever. Which is funny considering what I do for a living, but hey, that's a different thing. And having seen how she's complaining about Hey, I have identified, I think, at least 2 core issues that maybe eventually Hey will have to figure out. The lack of folders is one of them. She really doesn't, and I think this is one of the things that you also wanted to talk about, Myke. The fact that the way that the inbox works, the fact that you cannot archive, the fact that you cannot move a message from the inbox to another folder and just leave it there, that's one of our issues. You can tag, you can label, you can add to collections, but she just wants to take one message and put it in a different folder for, however you want to call it. The second issue is she misses a lot the more advanced filtering system from Gmail, and especially the fact that you can create a complex search query for things like if a message contains these words in the subject field, and if it comes from this particular sender, then label the message as such and such, or delete it, or archive it, whatever. And you can label in Hey, but you cannot create those kinds of more advanced filters yet. You cannot say, if it comes from this address, and so you can, combine multiple conditions. And if it contains these words in the subject field, then do something. And she used to do that a lot in Gmail, especially for like receipts for particular, emails related to the business. So I think eventually, especially on the second one, on the filtering, I can see Hey doing this, and I think they should focus on this, especially for their Hey for Work professional accounts. But personally, this is not a big deal for me. The overall flow of Hey works for me as Federico, but I know that both John and Sylvia, they have a different kind of email volume to deal with, and they have different kinds of emails to deal with. Like me, I just get mostly emails from developers, like actual people. Like I don't get receipts, I don't get invoices, that kind of stuff. And I understand where they're coming from.
Okay, so there is a labeling system. I wasn't even sure if there was a labeling system.
There is one. There is one.
Okay, which is cool, but as you say, automatic assigning of labels is a powerful feature, really, especially considering the fact that, Hey, their whole thing is like trying to be smart about the email that's coming in, right?
Yeah.
I signed up for Hey today.
Interesting.
So I put this in the show notes because I was just wondering how it was going. And it seems like for you it's going fine, and the issues in the Vitici household are Sylvia's, not yours. So I assume that you seem very happy with Hey, right? No issues?
I am. She's not.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to.
You got some work to do on the
situation. I have
some front.
A lot of work to do. Because
I received the Hey for Work email, and I wanted to try it, and I got an invite, but then realized today it took me so long to set it up. Anyone can just sign up now. It's like I went to sign up. It's like, all right, where do I put my code? And I never needed to do that. So right. I think it's open to everybody now. And So here's the thing for me. I was always assuming that I would probably try Hey out under the terms that I've done it, which is there is an email address that I use, which is a legitimate email address that I want to use more, and I purposefully want to keep it outside of Spark. And this is the Cortex brand email address. So business@cortexbrand.com is the email address. I've spoken about it publicly in the past. People can send in suggestions there for like if they have products that they think could be cool for us or whatever. But also it's going to be like as time goes on, a public-facing email address that I manage. People are already asking if I'm making Gray use Hey. No, I manage that email account. If he ever wants to, and I stick with Hey, then he's going to have to get a Hey account too. And I also thought like I could, with Hey's thing, I could easily set up like Myke@cortexbrand.com because they have that thingamajig, whatever they call it, the aliases or whatever. So I thought I was keeping this, it was in Gmail, and I was keeping it in Outlook. Right? Because I didn't want this. I wanted this to be an email account that I would just go to when I wanted to see that people had to say, but in case there was a large volume of email, which isn't now, but when I was originally talking about it, there was way more email coming in than I would have wanted to be in my regular email inbox. So I thought, well, this seems like a perfect use case for me to try it out. And also, there hasn't been a lot of volume to that email account recently. So I would be fine with making the change in case I have any downtime. And also I've dealt with pretty much all of the email that I want. I don't really need that backlog because anything that I wanted to pursue in there, I've taken out and stored in Craft anyway. It's just like, here's some ideas and that kind of stuff. But I exported the email, but because I still want that Google Apps address, I still have the Gmail there, right? Like I'm not going to get rid of my Google Apps account. Also because I'm not convinced that I'm going to stick with Hey. But I set it all up today. The sign-up process was pretty easy. DNS records are a terrible system for anything, and I can't believe it still exists, and we're still doing this. Right?
MX records, especially for email, are
just all
fun.
of it. I can't believe we're still doing it, right? Like, there should be some kind of API that all of these applications and domain registrars could talk to each other from. And they are a sponsor of the show, so but Hover do have a thing called Hover Connect, where with some services that they work with, you can just press a button, it takes you to one, takes you back to the other, and it's done. Which I just think is like, that's how this stuff should work. Right. Like a kind of OAuth like system. Like, you know, like I'm deleting things and it's like, oh, it could take up for an hour. I mean, maybe you did it right, maybe you broke it. We'll find out in an hour. And it's like, this is horrific as a system. But I set it up. It took a while. For a little while, weirdly, email was appearing in both places. I don't know how that was the case, but like I was sending some test emails to myself and I was getting them both in Hey and Gmail, even though I'd already removed Gmail from all of the MX records. And then eventually that stopped happening. I didn't set up a forward or anything. It didn't really feel like it was necessary. So I've only really tinkered around in Hey today, and this is going to be a long-term process for me because I want to see how it goes over a long period of time. I don't get a lot of email to this email address, and it's probably something I will do more. I will start sending from that email address as well. But I can't really put it through its paces until I receive a lot, right? Because that's the whole thing.
Right.
But there was a few things that I did. So you kind of answer one, that there's no archive function, and I think that's bananas.
Yeah.
And then I have to constantly see the recently seen email. I don't want to see it. I want it gone.
See that you're like Sylvia. Yes.
Why do I need it there? I've dealt with it. Why do you keep showing it to me?
Well, the idea is that they want to remove the burden of archiving messages.
Right, but then I have the burden of always seeing the email. Right? Sometimes I reply to things and I'm annoyed by the reply that I send. So I reply, I archive the message, so I don't have to think about it. So I come back to my email 3 hours later, I'm not reminded about how annoyed I was about that email. But if I do that with Hey, it's always there in my face. I don't know why, like, the feed And the paper trail, they're sequestered into their own areas, but recently seen has to be at the bottom of the inbox. It should be its own view. Very valid, or collapsible even. I don't know why.
Collapsible could work.
It's like, it's my inbox, and my inbox is empty but also full all the time.
Yeah, it's the Schrodinger's inbox.
It is, basically. And I don't know why. I don't understand it. What are notifications like? Do you use them at all?
Yes, I do. You can set notifications on a per contact basis.
Yeah.
So,
and also I noticed that they're off by default, which I thought was interesting. And I liked that they said, and I would need to test, you could turn off notifications for an entire domain. And I just thought that was very clever.
Yeah. And you can also mute threads. You can turn off domains, and you can enable them for contacts.
Right.
Which is what I do. I only turn them on for specific contacts or specific threads, but mostly contacts. So I just go into the contact page, and from there you can choose where to autofile messages from that contact and to enable notifications or not.
I have another question for you. How do I know when there's new email in either the feed or the paper trail?
You do not, unless you enable notifications for those addresses.
Right, and so you see this is an issue for me. So let me explain to you why I think this is a problem, right?
Well, or you could use the widget. You could use the widget.
I could use the widget. So it shows you in the widget, but not inside of the app?
Well, it doesn't... no, there's no badges or anything like that. You just got to open the menu and switch to those pages.
So every time I check Hey, I have to check 3 places if I want to see how much email I've gotten. And I don't know how that's supposed to help me. Right? So like you would the automatic filing of stuff is meant to keep you focused on your email, right? Like that's the idea. Makes perfect sense. But for me to check how much email I ever have, I have to check everywhere, potentially 4 places if I've got a screener. Yeah, I don't know. Because this is the type of person that maybe they're not building for me, where I am the type of person that wants to know. And so, like, for example, I have, I use SaneBox, right? And I have Sane Later and Sane News, which are basically the feed and paper trail, right? It's like, that's basically, kind of what they're doing. But in my email clients, they badge them. Now, I can see those badges and choose to go in if I want to, because I can see that there's new email there. But with Hey, I would have to be going there every single time to check if there's new email there. And most of the time, there wouldn't be. But I still want to know what's in there.
I guess you got to use the widget.
Yeah, but I don't want to use the widget, though.
Well, then you're out of luck. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know. I definitely don't want my email app as a widget, because I don't want to know how much email I've got when my email app is closed, right? Because now we're like, because you see the failure in logic here for me is, if you use the widget, it's okay to know if you have email in the feed or the paper trail, but if you're in the app, it's not okay. So they think it's okay sometimes to show you the numbers, but not all the times.
Yeah.
Plus, I hate that their app is just a web view on the Mac.
That is also a concern. Yes.
Yeah. So I know that right now, all I have is the frustration because I've not had the opportunity to really use the service, right? Like, I have not yet gotten to a stage where it's doing stuff to my email for me, which is clearly what's good about this, right? Like, that's why people like it. It's why you like it. It's why lots of people like it, because it can free up your email inbox for just the stuff you want to see. And so I have to give it some time, and I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not going to move away. I want to give this a long time trial, because also it's not my most important email. So I'm fine with it for right now, right? Like, I'll just leave it for a while and I'll see how it goes. But my first run experience has not been very positive. And I think it's purely because, for whatever reason, this system wasn't built for the type of email user I am, which is totally fine. Not everything has to be built for me, but I can still communicate what I think are some issues with the service.
Yeah. And you are an email power user who deals with a lot of email, much more than I do, and I totally understand these issues. And hopefully, like as you start working with it, as you start receiving more emails, you will also appreciate the things that I appreciate. Like for example, it's tax season right now in the U.S. and like John and I, we've really been taking advantage of things like collections to file messages and to keep a timeline of messages belonging to a particular topic. Obviously, leaving a comment on messages, which is something that you do in Spark, for example. We use that a lot in Hey as well. And personally speaking, for my own usage, just the separation between the inbox and the feed. The paper trail, I don't really care about. I keep things like confirmation emails. I basically never check it. I'm mostly split between the inbox and the feed. And having also the reply later area that I use a lot. Just I like the idea of having no new stuff under the new for you section. So hopefully over time you will also appreciate these things. And otherwise, you're just gonna have to switch back to something else. But I think give it a few months and see how it goes. And hopefully, like as you do this, hopefully the company will add some new functionality. Like this week, for example, they finally, I would say, they made it easier to switch between multiple accounts. They have a proper account switcher UI that is pretty fast to use, and they also have a unified view for all accounts. So they are working to, on catching up with the competition, and hopefully, search filters, that kind of stuff is next. Although I really like your idea of collapsing the recently seen section, and I would like to see folders. Just maybe let me create my own section, right? Just let me create my own reply later. Let me create, basically, those are, if you think about it, those are folders. So let me create my own area. You can call it a folder, you can call it a section, whatever, but basically a way to move a message from one place to another. So we'll see. I hope that they're not too stuck on the original idea and that they are, willing to listen to users. This is always the problem with opinionated software, if you will. The developer has some really deeply rooted ideas and it's hard to move them away from those. But I think you got to find a balance eventually.
I don't know how normal or not I am, but I probably get about 50 to 60 emails a day.
Ooh.
Okay. And, a lot of that is stuff that requires my attention. Quite a portion of it is stuff that I would love to be automatically just obliterated. But unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is stuff that as of yet, like I can't get rid of until it's come in the first time, which is like, hey, you should have this person as a guest on our show, and I could put those in the same black hole thing that I use, and then I never hear from that person again. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to get another 5 of those emails tomorrow from different people. Like, my email is a constant game of whack-a-mole, but there is also the vast majority of email that I get does require my attention. It's not like email newsletters. Like I get those, but not a lot of them. I may, I have the type of job where I deal with a lot of email. So I'm always interested in things that can try and make that easier for me. And so I want to give it a shot, because I'm willing to let go of things that I want for something that is better overall, Like I'm willing to let go of some of my particulars if I can get a better system, which is like how I felt with Spark. Like I was willing to let go of some things about how I like an email app to be designed because the service is so good. We'll see.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Baron Fig. You and I know how important, especially me, I'll say, how important pen and paper is to creativity, and so does Baron Fig. Baron Fig is a startup that launched back in 2013 with the Confidant notebook. What originally started out as a small project between designer and CEO Joey Cofone and his friends quickly turned into something more. With nearly 10,000 Confidant notebooks sold in the first 30 days, Baron Fig's founders realized there was a lack of quality thinker products on the market. Since then, Baron Fig has expanded their line of tools for thinkers to include notebooks, writing instruments, bags, accessories, and so much more. I am very excited. Baron Fig have sent out a little care package to me of their idea tool set, which is a grouping of 3 things that they do, which is they have a case, a pen, and a notebook. The pen that they make is one of my very favorite things that they have ever made. It's called the Squire, and it's a really nice looking pen with a little twist action, just my favorite one, and it uses one of my very favorite refills of any pen, and I really, really like it. The notebook, the Confidant, and the case they make is the Guardian, and you can put them all together and you can throw it in your bag, and it's all really nicely made. So they can work very well together. I have a blue slate, one of their cases, a yellow gold Confidant notebook, and rose quartz Squire pen on the way, which is a very wonderful set of colors, which I'm excited about. I'm going to be the most vibrant kid on the block with those 3. I really believe in having great writing tools to help plan things out, flesh out ideas, and that kind of stuff. Baron Fig makes these kind of products. Listeners of Connected can use the code CONNECTED20 and they'll get 20% off their very own idea tool set, which includes a Confidant notebook, Squire pen, and a Guardian case. Baron Fig not only works towards championing thinkers around the world through inspiration and imagination, they're also dedicated to leaving the earth better than they found it. That's why for every Confidant notebook sold, Baron Fig plants a tree, with tens of thousands of trees planted and counting. To get your tool set and plant a tree today, go to baronfig.com, and don't forget to use the code CONNECTED20, that's CONNECTED20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your purchase of the idea tool set. Baron Fig, do your best thinking. Our thanks to Baron Fig for their support of this show and Relay FM. So a couple of weeks ago, you asked me a question, which was, are there new apps anymore? And I put a pin in this because I figured we would want to talk about it at some point, and today is that time. So I want to know where this feeling is coming from for you.
So I've been thinking about this, and I think it's a combination of different things that I believe and that I've noticed, especially over the past year or so. The idea that more than before, I am frequently resisting the urge to try new stuff. And I've been thinking about it, and obviously the first almost default answer was, hey, that's what happens when you grow old. And I don't think that is it necessarily, because when I find something new, I get very excited still. I mean, look at Spotify. Like, just in recent months, we've seen examples of me being excited and happy to try new stuff.
Doing your thing.
Doing my thing. The problem is, it's much harder for me to be surprised these days by new apps. And so I've been thinking about this. Why is that? And I've come up with a few points that I would like to mention and discuss. The first one, I think, is that over time, I've been doing, Mac stories for the past 12 years at this point. And I have obviously developed my own tastes, my own needs, my own requirements. And especially when it comes to work-related apps, I think more than ever, I sort of demand some kind of maturity, some kind of a high degree of maturity and flexibility from the apps that I know I'm going to rely on, right? So I think my threshold for something new is higher than ever. And it gets very challenging for developers to meet that, right? Especially with the 1.0 release. Which again, when it happens, look at Craft, for example. When it happens, I'm the happiest man on earth, right? when I see the 1.0 that ticks all those boxes, I am blown away. But it's much, much harder. And it used to happen more frequently before. Now it's a very rare thing. The second issue, I see lately on the App Store, on places like, what's it called, the public thing for test flights? Airport?
App Airport.
Is that App Airport? Yeah. I see a lot of John calls them cookie cutter apps. They basically all look similar. I don't want to say the same,
Is
but
that
they all
Swift
look.
UI?
I've been thinking about this.
I think it's Swift UI.
Maybe that's the downside of something like Swift UI. It democratized, and it made it easier for a lot of people to get into app development.
Well, the second thing too, maybe it's not just that. Something like App Airport exposes you to more applications from first-time developers and smaller developers than you would otherwise see.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So I try not to think about that too much because I know that Airport is not like the App Store. There's a lot of apps that always stay there and they never come out publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of gems that I discovered on Airport. One of them, Denim. It's this really well done utility that allows you to make custom cover images for your Apple Music playlists.
I discovered pretty.
Yeah, I discovered it on Airport. It's now on the App Store. So I'm not saying that all test flights are bad and they never turn into shipping products, because experience proves otherwise. But a lot of them, they are either similar or pretty much, almost the same. And yeah, so there's that. The other problem, this is an obvious one. I get demoralized when I see a new application and I start keeping an eye on it. We have our own internal tool at Mac Stories called Update Bot, which is a thing that keeps track of app releases on the App Store. And it's very sad when I see this new potentially promising utility and it obviously gets abandoned after like 2 updates. It's like, well, this could have been something, but it's been 6 months and I don't see any updates. So I guess the developer's done. So that, it makes me sad. It's just, could have been interesting. I guess they're not working on it anymore. The other major turnoff for me is apps that are, again, potentially interesting, and then you download them, and one of two things happen on first launch. They want me to create an account.
Everything's a service now.
Everything's a service. Create an account. Just let me. Which I think it's actually against App Store review guidelines. You should provide some kind of demo functionality without requesting.
Wasn't that the exact thing that got Hey?
I think so. But I
think that was what they said. Was like, you just give us a login screen, and they're like, well, you won't let anyone create an account for like, And then it was. Remember, I had to create the demo version of the app.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Vidit makes a really good point in the Discord. SF symbols have also made a lot of apps look similar to each other. Very good point.
Because there's no custom iconography anymore.
In a lot of apps, there's no custom iconography anymore. So that definitely contributes to that. So as I was saying, they either ask me to create an account, which I could understand for like a document collaboration service. Sure, I need to create an account. Why do I need to create an account for a calculator or a note-taking app? Help me understand here. What am I exactly creating an account for? So that annoys me. The other thing is, you download something, and the first thing it shows you, hey, subscribe. There's a free trial. But first, I'm going to throw a subscription screen in your face, and you cannot demo the product. You cannot try it. First, give me your confirmation that you want to try this thing for free for 2 weeks, and then you'll get the chance to try the app, which, I hate to mention names, but we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. These new apps by, what's it called? Andy Works?
Yeah.
No more boring apps. They released a calculator, a weather app. The first thing you see is a subscription screen.
Yeah.
You can, and I thought the dichotomy between, hey, this is not a boring app, this is the most fun you've ever seen on the App Store in years, but first, here's a subscription screen for you. Otherwise, you cannot try the super fun thing we built. I thought that was a fascinating contrast for a first run experience. So to sum up, the combination of all these problems, but mostly I would say apps that look similar to each other, like, yeah, I've seen this before, and I've seen this before, and I've seen this before, that makes me bored. But also the fact that over time, I've been doing this long enough that I think I have a very high threshold for being surprised. And lately, it's happened like I can count it on one hand. Like the times that I've been like genuinely blown away by a new product. In most recent memory, Craft, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or Taio, maybe the new text editor. Like it happens.
Wait, what?
Very. Oh, Taio. We never talked about this. Oh, I mentioned it on App Stories. There's this new text editor, which is like the spiritual successor to editorial. It's called Taio, Taio. It stands for Text All in One, which I know it's not the best acronym, but it's an amazing and that's one of the very promising new apps that I'm keeping an eye on.
Oh, I know what this is now. I heard you talk about it.
It combines a text editor.
Tile.
No, Taio. Yeah, no, it's Taio. Text All in One. But it happens very rarely, and I am very. Sometimes I see, like, for example, a few days ago, everybody tweeting about this new weather app, this new timer and calculator app. And I thought, yeah, well, that looks fun, but is it really doing anything different besides showing you numbers with a 3D effect? It's like, where's the innovation?
All right, so I brought this to your attention, I think, the Andy Works apps, because I don't remember how I saw them, but I saw somebody retweet them, and it was like a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And I know this because I got the subscription thing today. I've let them bill me because I'm intrigued. And this is like a collection of applications that are intending to be different. So they're made of a game engine. I'm not sure which one. But that's one of the reasons why they look so incredibly different. I agree with you that one of the things that they do is the first thing when you either download any of the 3 apps that they make, one is a timer, one is weather, and one is calculator, is they try to have you subscribe, which I think is not the best thing to do. I get it, right? Like, but I think maybe they should try and have something. So Vidit is saying it's all SceneKit and SwiftUI, right? So the SceneKit is an interesting way to build apps like this, right? Like SceneKit is a game engine. And I understand, right? Make your money, like I get it, but I think at least some kind of idea of what I was paying for would have been helpful. But I was approaching these as a like information research exercise, so was willing to pay. What I will say is none of these applications have something to them where I feel like it's the app that I need to use for its purpose. But what I will say is I appreciate what they are trying to do. And the way that I take by looking through their materials, this isn't the end result for what they're attempting here. This is like a beginning of a movement. And I think that the movement that they are attempting to get to is coming from what you are finding, right? That there is potentially, could be argued, that apps are becoming a bit boring sometimes now. And so, like, I think whether I don't know if they would say that what they've done here is like the perfect encapsulation of what they're attempting, but they're trying to, I think, bring back some of the more playfulness of, say, iOS 6 applications in a more modern aesthetic. And if that is what they have attempted to do, I think that they have succeeded greatly on that, because these applications feel playful. They have sound to them and lots of really good tactics and animations. And so they're fun to just play with, but they feel modern. Most applications that I have tried that harken for that old time feel old when I use them, right? Or it's that, what is that halfway point that I see a lot now? What is that called? You know what I'm talking about? Where like,
No.
it's that design style, which is, it looks like a kind of Swift UI type app, but is it neomorphism?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, is it? Maybe.
I don't remember the name, but that really doesn't do it for me. Right. It's like it looks like the application elements are like popping out of a piece of paper.
Oh yeah, neomorphism. Yeah, that thing. Yeah, it just makes no sense.
That style I don't particularly like, and there is something that I find intriguing about the design of these applications, and I'm not necessarily advocating for them like as great apps, but as a project for I want to do something a little bit different, I like it. Now, again, I also, I think that there is a spectrum of feeling on here, and I don't think I'm exactly in the same boat as you, but we come at things differently, right? Where I don't look for new apps as much as you do. But a couple of years ago, I did note that I've had this similar feeling. And this was during one of the State of the Apps episodes that we do for Cortex every year, where I felt like there wasn't really anything. And the conclusion that I came to for myself was I had gotten to the point where moving to something else felt like such a hassle for a lot of the tools and services that I used that it had to be really good for me to want to do it. And that was something that I was noticing, but maybe it was more of a me problem. But I do find interesting what you're saying about design, that maybe, so there was a time when design would be the reason. But I think what's happened is the bar of design is raised, right? Because
True.
Just a standard Swift UI application looks so much better to me than any standard UI kit application did. So the bar of like, this is a baseline app, I think is a lot better now than it ever was. So I think it makes it harder to stand out. I don't know. Is there anything else on this? Like, what do you want? Right? What do you want that will make this better for you, do you think?
Well, I noticed that I now tend to gravitate toward really mature and flexible apps. And by flexible, I mean, look at things like Carrot Weather, for example, right?
Carrot Weather, I mean, we said this when it came out. That's a trend that we all want to see, right? Like really heavy customization, toolkits in applications.
Yes, heavy customization. Things like Good Task also is a really good example. You can make your own utility, basically. Or the other end of the spectrum is no customization, but a lot of care for a lot of details. Again, look at Craft or Timery. Like, obviously, like, even if you don't have customization, even if you don't have a toolkit for making your own UI, but a lot of attention to things like multi-platform, shortcuts integration, keyboard shortcuts, widgets, implementing the latest APIs. And I think what's really tricky is these days is coming up with trying to match all of this aspect in a 1.0 for a new developer. I realize it's difficult because, but I think it happens in any market, right? And the App Store has existed we're going into our 13th year of the App Store. And there's obviously developers who've been around since the beginning, like pCalc, for example.
Yeah.
And imagine being a new developer in 2021 who wants to make a calculator for pro users. And you're like, well, I have 13 years of pCalc to catch up with here. Is it even possible? And I don't have a straight answer to that, right? It's obviously very challenging. So either you try something different like Andy Works, even though I dislike their implementation of the first run experience, or maybe you just go for it and you try to take advantage of the things that Apple has simplified and made easier for you, maybe like design. Maybe you try to differentiate on having a universal app, having shortcuts integration, having Siri integration, that kind of stuff. But I think personally speaking, I look at my home screen and when I see stuff like Good Task, Craft, Timery, what's the other one? Carrot Weather, Music Harbor, Apollo, and I look at these apps and I'm like, well, there's something in common between all of these, which is the developers are always working on these apps, right? They're constantly updating them. They're constantly taking advantage of new features. And most of them, even Apollo, I would consider one of the most customizable apps I've tried on my devices. They prioritize that idea of the ecosystem is mature enough, apps are mature enough. What's a good way to differentiate, to bring back the fun? Customization. You make it your own. And I think that's it. In 2021, especially considering what we witnessed in iOS 14, I think that's a pretty safe way to ensure that you can keep, you can keep the passion from people like me, I think.
Maybe customization removes the concern of apps looking similar on the...
I absolutely agree with that. Yes. It's a good way to ensure that you can stay fresh and interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Because look, we all like to customize, and those who say they don't, they just don't know it yet. I firmly believe this.
Yeah.
And lastly, what I would say is something that would not rekindle, because there's nothing to rekindle here. I still love testing and writing about apps. But something that would help. Well, two things. More pro apps for iPad, but especially made by Apple. Like, I want to see Apple lead by example here. There are pro apps on iPad. I still think that Apple should come out and say, hey, here's Logic, Final Cut, and Xcode. Like, the bare minimum they should do. And the second thing is, I feel like it would be generally like a new beginning for me and for Mac stories if there ever was Gatekeeper on iOS and iPadOS. If Apple were ever to bring proper side loading to iPhone and iPad so that you can install apps from other sources. Because I've also considered like the fact that I have this thought and that I have this question for Myke: are apps boring now? Are there any new apps anymore? Is it because after 12 years of Mac stories, I'm now bumping into App Store limitations? Is that one of the potential issues? Maybe. And I know that if folks like Panic, for example, could bring their apps without any restrictions to iPad and could charge for them however they want, I know that would do a lot in terms of, hey, here's a whole new market of apps for you. I don't think it's ever going to happen. So,
and a way that they could do is people that feel like they might be have an idea that will push the boundaries, might say, I'm not going to bother with this. Right. And there's an app you potentially lost out on because they figure it won't get through app review.
Yeah.
But if there was side loading, then they might be more willing to give it a go. Because no one can stop them.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get that.
No, I don't think I will.
You'd have to hope for other stuff. I don't think you're going to get that.
Yeah. So to sum up, it's not like I don't like apps anymore. It's that it's become increasingly more difficult for me to be genuinely surprised by new apps for all the reasons we mentioned here.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Sure. Felt like therapy.
If you would like to find out more about this episode of Connected, you can use the web if you like. Go to relay.fm/connected/334. We have one of our links there, but of course they'll be in your podcast app of choice. If you want to get longer episodes of Connected, more awesome content, japes, discoveries, and more, go to getconnectedpro.co and you get the show without ads as well. Anybody that has signed up, thank you so much. If you are going to sign up, also thank you so much. I would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors of this week's episode. They're the fine people at Pingdom, Bombus, and Baronfig. If you want to find Federico online, you can go to maxstories.net, and he is at Viticci, Viticci. I am at Myke, Imyke, and Stephen, who'll be back next week, is at ISMH. The episode of Liftoff that Stephen did with Ron Moore from For All Mankind was super good. I recommend trying that out. And hey, if you like this show, let me tell you about another show here at Relay FM. It's a show called Pictorial. So look, we all love art in some way, right? But maybe we're tired of elitism keeping beautiful art stories out of reach in expensive classrooms. So are Quinn and Betty. They host a Pictorial podcast all about art history. You can find Pictorial to listen more and learn yourself at relay.fm/pictorial or search for Pictorial wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next time.
Oh, hold on,
then.
Mike.
Oh, whoa.
Hold on.
Ew.
I have a question for you.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, I wasn't going to do it. Okay, go on. You have a question.
Okay. Would you rather be invincible but not immortal? Like you can be invincible but you're still gonna leave this world someday? Or would you prefer to be very weak, like no physical strength whatsoever, but immortal? So weak forever or invincible for a short period of time?
Well, what defines short? Is that like a regular life expectancy?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, invincible but regular life expectancy.
Okay, interesting.
I don't like the idea of being incredibly weak and living forever. That sounds horrible. Plus,
Hey,
I don't think
forever. You can try a lot of stuff.
I don't think anyone should live forever if they're going to be unique in that.
Really?
You have to watch everyone you love die.
But still, you can witness a lot of cool things and you can do everything you can possibly want to do. Travel the world multiple times over and over.
Right, but that means you are eventually going to run out of things to do?
No, you can never run out of things to do. There's always new things to do.
No, I would prefer strength and
invincible but regular life expectancy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. What would you prefer?
I'm not as sure as you.
Okay.
Because the idea of living forever is actually pretty compelling. I think we got to define weakness, because I said incredibly weak.
You defined it, Federico.
Would you like to be very frail and...
That was how I described... Because what I thought you were going to say was invincible and mortal, or immortal and invincible? I don't know what the opposite of invincible. Fallible? That's what I thought you were going to say. And then it's like, oh, that's a bit more interesting of a thought process, right? Like, I can be hurt, but I can't die. But you went with very weak. So I was kind of like, well, I don't want to be very weak. That sounds horrible. So you set the parameters on that one. I still don't think I'd change my answer, though.
Yeah, because, maybe if I had to pick, I would say invincible and regular life expectancy. Because, man, imagine being invincible.
Sounds pretty great, right?
But also, would you care about being invincible? Are you the type of person who prioritizes being invincible? Do you get into many fights?
I would if I was invincible. If I was invincible, I'd just go solve everything I wanted to solve, right? I can't be hurt. I like this idea of an invincible but mortal person, that they couldn't be hurt by anything, and then one day, gone.
You know what made me think of it? You know what made me think of it? When you collect the star in Super Mario, you are invincible, but for a short period of time.
Well, I mean, I hope it would be longer than Mario, because that's really not very long.
I guess if you want to put it in Mario terms, would you want to get the star, or would you want to be short Mario, before you get the mushroom forever? But
again, you're not giving much of a... Who wants to be the tiny Mario forever? That sounds horrible.
Maybe there's maybe some folks like to do that. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, no, I definitely like
you want to
invincible but mortal.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Thank you for that question.
Sure.
I can see why you like getting these questions, actually. It's very intriguing. All right, we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, Federico.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.